Hello. Okay, I have another break in my day. This is very unusual for me, but I am sitting down to process energy in this space again, 2 times in one day. I am going to pull a few cards, but I am getting guidance to just talk about a few things. And this is a little bit of a two birds thing because there are going to be collective messages for people who this resonates with in it, but because even when I go into personal anecdotes and I process kind of things up against my own experience and experiences and memories and examples, I still try to translate them with an air of collective messages. And of course, I would never bring any aspects of my personal anecdotes into the messaging if they weren't relevant. So again, if it's your first time watching me, I just ramble a lot. I have a lot of information coming through and I've been honing my skills in translating that. But it can be all over the place, and if I'm not doing, specifically readings, then it can be a little, jarring for people, or like, just not the type of guidance that you might expect from a YouTube reader coming through as far as like just pulling a spread. But all right. So I posted a little video. It's actually not uploaded quite yet, but it will be on the page later today. It's called Energy Check-In that I was moved to do. And then I forget the rest of the title, but it's the most recent one on the channel. And I was talking about like healed masculine energy in balance with like a feminine understanding of flow and kind of like deep acceptance when we're not completely aware of the entire picture of how things are coming together, because we rarely are. Even when we think we are, we rarely are. There are elements that are always us being just humans out of our control, kind of up to the fates. And we had that. I actually didn't even put away the cards because I ran a little bit over this morning and I had to race on out of here. But we had our divine pairing of Queen and, I should probably move the candle. That would absolutely drive me crazy if I lit my cards on fire. I would have something you wouldn't want to catch on camera. Conniption fit. We have 7 of Pentacles. We also had the Hermit, and I was talking about the Hermit last week before the holidays, or, it's been a theme, but I feel like for people who resonate with my work, or people who are coming a little bit more into like their spiritual gifting around like, maybe I'm a starseed, maybe I'm an indigo child, maybe I have spiritual gifting that is actually asking to come online so that I can take my life in a different direction around like how my days feel, kind of breaking out of monotony, adding and infusing more creative energy that's more aligned to your passions into your way of life, into doing things. Not being able to do that all at once, but migrating it over, kind of evolving our lives in phases. Because when we manifest, it's very hard to move the 3D physical world quickly, right? The muscle that we can engage to change the energetic output is something that we're constantly feeding. And so that can be immediate, like in the 5D, right? You can immediately collapse things, stop fueling them energetically. But if they have roots, if they have some type of tether within your psychology, if they're functioning for you, if there's something that needs to be cleared out and integrated, then it's hard to do that and collapse those things. And that's where we get into integrative healing, inner child work, traumas and stuff that's coming up, as well as like the subconscious purges. Sometimes there are these disparate things that are purging out where it's like one isolated incident, but it played into the way that you moved into a different incident, right? So interconnectedness between the different aspects of our lives that we're healing. Sometimes we go through certain things. I'm also seeing the energy of, thank you, this is really beautiful. Archangel Shamuel is in my space today. There's a very light rose quartzy pink healing energy. I pulled the heart chakra card earlier as well. So yeah, I was just seeing pink everywhere and hearing that. So if you're interested in working with the archangels, or if you have, then you can Google Archangel Shamuel and say, prayer affirmation to use that energy frequency to help with what it is that you're going through right now. Opening yourself, softening yourself to unconditional love, because in the other reading, I also touched on how this energy with the Cancerian full moon, it's our last full moon of 2023. And if you go way back, I always tell people, if you just land on my channel and you're like, what is this? Or, my recommendation, because I'm a control freak with my creations, is that it would behoove the viewer to go back and start watching the videos that I posted. I think it's got 16 videos on it in my playlist section. It's everything I recorded when I was physically in Italy at a painting residency, beginning a cycle that we're closing out right now. So the language, the analogies, everything's kind of packaged in this thing that's developed from June, mid-June, until now. But even before then, right, because I started this channel last January, but I was just feeding some random videos that I had taken the prior 2 years before onto the channel to just start posting and be like, what is YouTube? How do I do this? One of the readings that I did at the beginning of this year, it's got to be, I think it's like the energy reading of 2023. This year started off with a Cancer full moon, okay? So we've been bookended. I like this a lot because I'm a Cancer sun. If you have water placements, then, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about elemental energy and compatibility and stuff too. Yeah, okay, I'll insert this. It feels a little irrelevant, but I'll explain it. I talk a lot about being a Cancer sun. By the way, one of my viewers sent this to me. It's a labradorite pendant. It's hand twisted wire. Catch the light. There we go. That like pretty glint of like that other color. Ugh, this is really good for calming an anxious and active mind. So this has been one of my like, again, it's on a chain and it's meant to be a necklace, but I hold this stone. I meditate with it a lot. So Archangel Shamuel as well as labradorite, if you're interested in the tools, right, and the support. But anyway, I have a lot of fire placements in my chart. I do not have much earth energy. I do not have many earth placements in my chart. My Mars is in Taurus, but that just makes me incredibly stubborn. Means I have that fight in me. But Taurus is also ruled by Venus. And so it's about love and sensuality and passion and like the finer things of life, but they're, you know, they're stubborn, right? There's a lot of Taurian, there's interesting, I love Taurus energy. But when I visualize my chart, my activity, the essence of how I show up in the world with that fire and that water, and just my obsession with like rainbows and what I've been talking about recently with like the tactility of honey, how that moves in a space, how it's almost a hybrid of elemental energy where it's like, is it liquid? Is it earth? And how something that's oozing and dripping is constantly, it's flowing, right? It's alive. Think about a river. It never stops. Time flows, it goes. It's the opening line to a poem I wrote a little while back. So if I were personified in some type of like visual, right? Because this has been given to me by my guides yesterday, the day before, I was thinking about this. It's like an oil slick, like rainbow, an oil spill in the middle of the ocean, far, far away from any shore, just middle of the ocean, this rainbow blob, but it's on fire because it can be. It's not just a fire floating in the water, right? It's this thing where the fire meets the water is like this rainbow film, and it's keeping the fire on the ocean. It's just a fire raging in the middle of the ocean. That's kind of how I feel sometimes. And I have tended to in the past, if we think about astrology compatibility, I've dated a lot of air sign men, particularly Aquariuses, and I attract them too. And I don't even know, you don't know. I've got my feelings. I got my hunches. I'm actually really good at guessing people's zodiac signs and birthdays, and it spooks them, spooks the crap out of them. I've scared people. I'm like, Pisces. And they're like, yeah, you creep me out. No, even if I don't know who somebody is when they approach me, oftentimes, even if I don't go to somebody, they end up being air sign male. And there's something to that, okay? And it's because if we think about feminine, masculine polarity, and then like watery cups energy, feminine, but fire signs are sort of a masculine leaning sign. So I'm a little balanced in that, but there's like a tension in it because I get a little, we can all kind of float into one aspect of our being at one point or another. But if you think about that fire raging on in the middle of the ocean and it was really windy, right? Air. It's like the wind is ripping across the ocean and the currents of the wind are moving. And then it's like, oh, what's this weird rainbow party raging on in the darkness with nothing else in sight? Let's go see what that is. And the wind, the air, it infuses that. It makes the fire, it fans the flames, that's conducive to what it is that I'm doing and who I am. And I, even though I like that air quality, where's the groundedness, right? I'm lost at sea with all this like passion, motivation, action energy. And then the air comes in because air signs tend to be very mental, right? Swords energy, being able to think things through, intelligence, aptitude and high levels of observation. And that excites me, right? Because I'm like, do you want to listen? Because I want to explain. Do you have thoughts? Because I want to hear them too. There's something conducive there. But I know that I would do well, and I do have people in my life. My cousin, who's like my sister, my soul sister, she's one of my best friends, and we've grown up very side by side since we were in utero, 2 months apart in birth. She's older. And she was born on Earth Day. So she is an Earth princess. She is a Taurus. She's really good for me. We're a conducive pair. She's not a romantic partner, right? Or a collaborative person in that sense. But side by side, we're like two girls in a different font, cut from the same cloth. And what she does for her life and how she moves in her way, in her what she's gravitated towards and how her energy compels her to move in the world, it's like a compliment to how my energy compels me to move in my world. And I talk sometimes about my business ventures or my creative ideas and what it is I'm starting and developing. And she has always been a person who has similar dreams, but they're different. Again, same, but different. She's a collaborator. She's somebody who I want to link up with, right, in business. It's Three of Pentacles energy. It's partnerships and alliances, harmony, balance, having two sides of something that they're different. They're meant to be. They take up space in a different way, but they come together. Harmony. Because there's a huge transformation occurring and we know all about it. We do. And what we don't know is okay right now. And we need to sit in the comfort of that. So that being a little bit of an intro, I know I kind of got away from talking about all the hermit stuff, but really that's enough of a recap. There's more information in the Christmas Eve update on my website, wordsmithofthe.imperial.com, under the updates tab. And then there's also the Christmas Day reading. I was also thinking, I'll just get this out of the way because I just feel like saying it before I get into the other stuff. But it's funny because sometimes I'm like, I know that like when my videos just get like a very small amount of views, I'm like, ugh, thank God we can be alone. I'm like, who am I talking to though? Why wouldn't I want for there to be more viewers? And it's like, it's because I could, if you read the mission on my website, I'm talking pretty generally as a person who wants to help from a therapeutic coaching stance. I have a long fraught history with mental illness and being treated in the system in recovery programs, working through addictions and diagnoses and being medicated and all that. So I like to try to offer people a way out or an adjunct, something else to assist in that, because that did not heal me. And I am effectively somebody who can sit here before you and say that I was once diagnosed as rapid cycling manic depressive and bipolar 2 disorder, and I don't experience that anymore. Yes, I talk really quickly and you can be like, you seem a little manic. Trust me, I get that a lot. However, I do not, and I have enough track record in my life to know that this is not like an imbalance of serotonin, I'm gonna crash, right? That did used to happen to me. And I have completely, without medication, holistically stabled myself over the past decade. That does not happen to me anymore. But if I was somebody who was not into energy healing, I would not have had another way. So my offering to the collective and what I like to do and think about is like just healing overall for however a person needs it. And I think the most common things that people struggle with are codependencies and relationship issues, traumas that they haven't processed, and dependencies with substances and stuff. So that's kind of my open-ended offering. However, this has been made very clear to me over the past few days. I mentioned soulmates, twin flames, some of those terms the other day. I was saying I kind of feel like when we get into like, you don't know who your audience is. That's the thing. So it intimidates me to think about the growing channel because I want to be very careful with not giving the wrong people the wrong information, right? It's up to the viewer to decide what resonates with them. And I could make a channel that is only specifically for people who resonate with terms like empath, starseed. I mean, this is kind of what that is. I don't think you'd come here if you didn't believe in any of that. You wouldn't really find much value in it, or you use the opportunity to just sit around and criticize me about how you disagree with me, because we know that people love to do that. But hopefully that's not the case, right? I could make a much more finely tuned level of topics and approach to communicating about healing that is for people who are closer to me in vibrational level of awakening, talking like really high level nitty gritty, but I'm afraid I'm going to lose my, common clan of people who are just starting to reach certain things. And I want to reach my arms out as big as I can and get as many people in, right? But with the twin flame stuff, right? So I talked about how I tend to think that it can do a lot of damage to have a lot of people out there kind of convoluting the space and putting information about that out. because you just have a ton of people who are just very, very, very clearly not in that situation or understanding of that. But these are the closest, like, they kind of superimpose these things on their circumstances as a way of trying to, I don't want to go there, but it is a fact that I could be somebody who only did messages about that. And it's important because that's a really misunderstood thing, experience, phenomenon. Hi, sweetheart. It's important to have people, you know, who can provide guidance, and there are tried and true, accurate readers who are pulling on very real information and pulses in the collective, and they're offering that as guidance, and they do sessions and stuff, and that's helpful and that's useful for people. But there's a whole slew of people who are kind of like locked into their stuff that are using all of that narrative to avoid their own karmic cycles, really. You know, if that's not what you're caught up in, like, it's all about detachment, right? If you can be detached from stuff, then it's okay. But anyway, it's not my chosen path to channel about like any of that specifically right now, at least right now, because I want to keep the net open and I want to keep it like accessible. But I just wanted to like clarify my stance on that. Help me bring this back around because I know we were going somewhere. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because for the space I'm at right now in my development, I tend to kind of like interrupt myself a lot and like I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say, right? Even though I know that I do have good information when I can focus enough to let it come through and all that. So it's good that I have a small viewership. I should not fear it growing if and when it does, the channel and the viewership amount, because when that happens, I will have adhered properly in an inseparable manner from the thread that pushes forth my messaging. And so I will be less confused and I'll be able to handle that and not wonder. Because when a new person subscribes to my channel, I'm like, hopefully you didn't just see one piece of information that resonated with you and like everything else is meaningless. Like I want it to be, this is why I'm going to turn on my comment section because I'm interested in knowing what it is that I say that makes zero sense, what it is that needs more explanation. You know, I don't expect them to be like flooded with questions or anything because people have always had access to email me. But if you are a viewer, if you do have thoughts, if there's something that I never finished talking about and you're like, when are you going to get back to, just let me know. You know, I'd love that. I would love that. It's important to get feedback from viewership, but I'm also so sensitive that I can tell how it feels. This sounds crazy. I know it does, but if you get it, you get it. If you experience things like this, when somebody watches the videos or a certain amount of people do, or every now and then I will put a post about something that I did on this channel, like a thumbnail of the most recent video on like my main Instagram story that has, you know, all sorts of people in different energies. I like the viewership on YouTube because if you wanted to be here, you know, people who want to watch, people who don't. Instagram, it's a bunch of people who are just scrolling through stuff and like many of them probably don't resonate with it or, you know, and I posted something. I don't do it so much anymore because I deactivated my personal Instagram because I don't want to be viewed or perceived right now. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to be distracted by it. So it's suspended at the moment for personal reasons. So this was a while ago, but when I was looking at my story the next day, I think I posted some snippet of it. I looked at my Instagram story. I scrolled through the amount of people who had looked at it. And while I was doing that, I heard in my head, it wasn't really like a telepathy moment. It was more so what I felt like was happening is that I could hear the thoughts of a female who had watched it. And it was as if I was hearing what happened in her head when she interacted with what I put out there. Okay. So through the space-time continuum, I felt after the fact a connection to the energy of someone else's reaction because it's intertwined, enmeshed, entangled energetically with my output. And I'm very in tune with that. What I heard was, oh my God, really? You're still trying to do this? And it hurt my feelings for natural reasons because that's my worst fear, that nobody cares, that this doesn't matter, that I'm insane. And I got to be able to have a thicker skin. A lot of people would be like, you don't? I thought you did. No, I'm incredibly sensitive. But I've learned how to not take things personally because I have so, like, I'm sorry, you know, like I can't change the commitment to the thing. It's really, unavoidable, you know? So those types of judgments do affect me personally, but then I'm just like, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. But I don't want for somebody who I went to high school with, who I haven't talked to in 20 years, that's an overshot of time, but I don't want them to watch my videos and be like, that's kind of sad and pathetic. Like, that you're not, like, that's not, you know? But if people feel that way, then just move on and go listen to something that, I don't know, does inspire you. If it's not me, that's okay. So anyway, I was thinking about distress tolerance, and when I was in therapies, okay, when I was in treatment programs, it's very interesting because a person who's struggling, who's unwell, you know, mentally ill or dealing with addictions and stuff, there's a reason for that. We adopt those behaviors because they function for us and they help us avoid doing some type of inner resolution, to put it really generally, right? So I was in a place in my life where I kept things inside. I journaled, but I was less in touch with communicating my emotions to other people. One might assume this is why I am so good at doing that now and expressing myself, because I didn't feel like I could. And when I did, I didn't really feel like it made much of a difference, right? If somebody's constantly in your face, if you have different meetings, different appointments, if you're in a controlled setting and you're in a healing program or a recovery program, and you know, throughout the day, constantly, week after week, month after month, you've got somebody like, so how are you today? And they're all maddeningly calm, and they're just sitting there and they got a notebook, and it's like, come on, put your pen down, like, ugh. No, but you know, this is me tapping into that version of myself who felt very trapped. So they're saying, you know, like, how are you today? How are you today? Multiple times a day. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm fine. The anguish that encompasses my essence is still somewhat unbearable, and I really just have the urge to scream so hard at the top of my lungs to the point where I'm just projectile vomiting blood everywhere. But other than that, I slept well, so I'm feeling pretty good today. Like, you know, if I said anything authentic back then to what I felt inside, I'm also a bit of a drama queen. I've always been a bit of a diva, right? But my feelings were valid. It's complicated. People, when they're sad, like to go into these self-indulgent spirals, right? I was listening to, I was driving earlier in the car, and the song Skin of My Teeth by Demi Lovato came on, which I like. I kind of fuck with that song because I'm just like, I've been through so much. I'm still alive. I can't believe it. But I think it's important to have people who can mirror our struggles, right? Because that's kind of the function of art and music and stuff. But when it's glorifying that, there's a difference. And I'll talk about that more in the next few weeks. But yeah, I was listening to it, and it's also very like young adult, right? Just to be like, ugh, life is so hard. So that's the mentality that I was in these programs. And it's like, if I said something truly authentic about the depths of how I felt and how I felt trapped and misunderstood and incredibly depressed and not really addressed at all in a way that felt good, and all the medications made me feel awful, all that, right? They would have been like, well, we have another medication for that. Or maybe you're misdiagnosed and let's slap another label on it. And it's just felt really out of control, right? I will talk more about like my personal experience with what people called mania within me. I have a kite tattoo on my middle finger, and I got it for the first time in Thailand when I'll talk about that. It's been inked over, and that happened in the States, but it was 2012 when I went to Thailand for the first time. That was the first time I've been to Thailand, 2012. So anyway, special time I had there. Special. I'm sorry, I'm amped today. There's a lot moving through. There's a lot to feel. There's a lot to think about. And that's why we have to stay grounded and connect to the heart chakra and the solar plexus and keep that like open fulcrum of inner sun flowing. But I really genuinely think that the mania that I was experiencing was actually just elated states of open energy and high vibration that I couldn't sustain. Of course, when I was using substances, taking drugs, and I was in that state, I would kind of go into like, you know, manic delusion, because when we talk about mania, or if you're in a psychiatric evaluation of some kind and they're taking information, it's like not really needing to sleep or eat as much, being really active, talking really fast, visions of grandeur, I mean, I fit everything, right? And then the shadow aspect of mania is like delusions, hallucinations, promiscuous, unsafe, reckless behavior, and substance abuse. So unfortunately, right now I can embody a high vibration that appears like all the good sides of mania without any of that other stuff. But when I was more troubled, I just fit the bill, right? Is it foot the bill, like you can pay it, or fit the bill, like fit the specification? I don't understand that. I think it's both. Whatever. Okay. So yeah, that was really hard for me. I'm seeing a picture of a butterfly and these scissors coming in and the wings being cut off, because basically, like, no matter what I said, no matter what I felt, they were like, no, you're not a magical pony. You're mentally ill. Your visions are not valid. We need to squash them out of you. Here's some lithium. And then I became very numb, right? And I've talked about this before. It's like mood stabilizers and antipsychotic medication and antidepressants and stuff. It's no joke. It's no joke. And this is a trigger warning, okay? Self-harm. Don't watch this if you like struggle or feel like, who knows, you know, trigger warnings. You have to be careful about how you talk about certain things. I know this because I've been around people. For example, I'll say this, okay? I've had a long history with stabilizing my habit relationship to food, because I struggled with an eating disorder for a really long time, and it takes a long time to recover from those because food is pretty unavoidable. And there's so many different situations, right, and people involved. It's interesting unless you, to think about it if you've never struggled with it, and how much you would think about it if you did struggle with it. For example, when I was really struggling with my eating disorders, it was basically never not on my mind. I couldn't live a life. I was always like, it's not a good time. But I try to talk sensitively around certain material that might trigger people, because I know how easily I was once triggered by certain things that some people might not think are very triggering, right? And when I say trigger, I just mean it's going to tip you into some kind of state where you're not feeling good, or acting from an ungrounded way, or God forbid, engaging in certain types of behaviors because I'm talking about them. That can happen, and all I want to do is help and provide space to understand these things better. But I was talking a couple weeks ago, last week maybe, about being mishandled at the hand of OBGYN people, gynecologists, and kind of having PTSD from that, but also the bedside manner. And one appointment in particular stands out in my mind because I had been going through, I'm a human who has experienced massive fluctuations in my weight over time, and I still do today, right? It's not because I struggle with eating disorders. It's because I'm not attached to my form or how I look. I feel good with, I'll talk about this later because it feeds into a different thing that I've been intentionally sidestepping because I haven't been ready to talk about it yet, but I'm going to get to it, and I'm going to get to it soon. But anyway, I was going to say, you can go back to July. I've lost a lot of weight. I've been toning up and focusing on myself and trying to just lose density and feel better. But sometimes I feel better with more weight on me. And that's okay. Everybody gets to feel intuitively into what their body needs and how they want to feel. And back then, though, the fluctuations in my weight were greater, and they were for unhealthy reasons. And the woman who was doing my intake, kind of no matter what you're doing, if you show up to any kind of thing, they do like the vitals and stuff and kind of take you into an initial room. And she was looking at her thing saying, excuse me one sec. She said, oh my God, no, this can't be right. It says you've gained X amount of pounds since the last time you were in. This probably isn't your file. Is this you? Did you gain this much weight? It's not really the tone that she said it in, but that's exactly the confusion. Like, if I was a professional in a medical environment, I would step out. I would confer with one of my colleagues. I would read through it. I would check the birthday. I wouldn't ask the person, are you sure this is you? Number one, unprofessional. Number two, I don't need to listen to your thought stream while you arrive like from point A to point. Number three, I had to sit there and be like, yeah, no, it's correct. That is me. I have just gained that much weight in this amount of time. She has no idea that I have a history with troubled eating, or if that could be triggering to me. I immediately wanted to cry so badly, and that set me up for a pretty bad appointment, because I was like, damn, that's just insensitive. Like, who the fuck says that? You don't know my life. You don't know what I've been through. Ugh. Yes, yeah. Like, don't make somebody say that in a space that's supposed to be like safe. Don't make me say, yeah, that's really the case. It's just, it was rough. I didn't like that. So anyway, trigger warning, self-harm. This is just another quick little insertion because I'm noticing that I never finished that thought, but I was talking about how on the updates page in the Christmas Eve update posting that I did, I said, for collective advice, like, when we bleed, we remember our mortality, or that we're real. So I wasn't thinking at all about anything related to self-harm when I posted that, because it's symbolic, it's metaphoric, it has to do with pain and the cycles that we're going through, things that rock us to our core, that really remind us that we're alive. They take us out of the norm, right? I think about that and the kind of the energy now as like the world being so numb, my body, my mind, on all those medications that I was taking on, feeling so numb that I started, engaging in acts of self-harm in order to just remind myself I could even feel anything. So that's a little clip right there. I did go through a period of self-harm in my teens. I believe that this is a super, super misunderstood habit of young people. It's very easy to hide. It's a coping mechanism, but a lot of people just don't get it at all. Why on earth would you cut yourself? I have certain scars on certain areas of my body where I did it discreetly to not be noticed by anybody. And it's not like I was, trying to do serious damage. I mean, for a lot of it, I would use like thumbtacks or thin things, but there was this numbness within me and I couldn't feel anything. But when I drew blood from my own skin, I felt alive, right? It meets a need that's not being met. Any unhealthy coping mechanism does that. So pretty weird time in my life, if I think about that. I've actually done certain stick and pokes on one in particular on my leg to like cover up some of the scars that I had that I didn't want to look at anymore. There's nothing, you'd never know if you didn't know, right? But I think about how the world is becoming and how it's a very strong subconscious thing. It's instinctual for us to kind of avoid pain and not have to deal with things. And I worry and I fear and I sense and I would like to help. It's not fear as in like, oh no, what are we going to do? It's a fact that people are becoming number, or they're wanting to be, because things are just so uncomfortable and like hard to make sense of and overwhelming, and like, forget the global issues. We all have our own stuff. Like, how am I even gonna, pay my bills? Like, people are in chaos modes right now on very personal, deep levels, and it makes everything else just so hard to hold. And that's when we start getting into these spaces where it's like, I need, people say things like, I need a night out, I need a vacation, I need something to make it stop, right? And when it comes to angsty teenagers or young people who cannot accurately communicate their inner world to anybody else because there's just so much there, it's confusing, right? You continue to return to me. Would you like your cameo? Fluffy. You're special. You're beautiful. And I love you. It's in these times when we don't feel like we can connect to anybody that we find something to do that makes it feel a little bit more manageable somehow. And I wasn't even thinking, I think a lot more about my other issues than I do about that, because it was a pretty small chapter for me. And it was something, there are so many details, so many nitty gritties about my own experience and my past and my healing journey that like even my family members don't know about, because it's all, it's like the notes in the case file. It's the details that I ended up sharing with the professionals who were trying to help me. I can't believe I did that, because they really are professionals and a lot of them were really good people. Sorry. But it makes me think too about, if you haven't seen this documentary called This Is Paris on YouTube, I highly recommend watching it. It's by Paris Hilton, Before You Say No. It's not about her and her brand and everything. It's about, just watch it. Really, please watch the This Is Paris documentary. It's not what you think it is. I don't feel like giving an overview of it. But basically, she went through some stuff that her mother was not aware of. her mother's not a very good actress, and she's not a very authentic woman, Miss Kathy Hilton. Like, you can tell in the way she speaks, she doesn't have that genuineness. She's disconnected from a lot of things within her. So when she's saying in the interview, like, oh, I had no idea, or however she's speaking, I'm like, really? Really, Kathy? But it could be that she had no idea, okay? And she's just unable to communicate authentically. It could be that she had no idea. A lot of the things that young people or people who are treated for, like any system, Paris Hilton in particular, and a lot of young celebrities went to, like, you know, kind of like the outdoor boarding school rehab, these intense camps, really, that have a horrible toxic culture of abuse within them. Big issue that people don't talk about. It's just another one of these big issues that people don't talk about, but it's similar, right? It's almost like the juvie level, like there's mentally ill, but then there's also criminals. It's kind of like the prison thing, where there's a lot of horrible abuse, horrible things. I think about in the spring, this was about 5 or 6 months ago, there was this huge storm or hurricane or something in like Alabama or something, and I saw footage of a prison and it had flooded. It was literally raining out of their ceiling, and these inmates with their bunk beds, you know, they only have like, I don't know about jail too much, but like personal effects and stuff, like they're just sopping, right, in their home. Like nobody helped them, like that. And who cares, right? Like, well, we can't fix it. And it's the lost and forgotten of life. I went over to my grandparents' house to spend Thanksgiving with my grandparents and my brother. And, you know, when I came over, they were like, you know, we were talking about you. We were talking about how you can kind of just talk to anybody. You can kind of just disarm people and talk to anybody. And I really can. It makes me good at like what I do for work, because I have to basically just show up and speak to strangers all the time without knowing what I'm walking into, and try to appeal to them and get them to hand me thousands of dollars. And but be authentic, right? Because people, I'm in sales. People know when you're trying to sell them something. And I'm not. I just have to. I'm trying to help you. You just might pay money in order to receive said help. Hi. I knew this would happen. I'm just interjecting a thought because I am obviously done with the video and I have left my house. But I know for a fact that I left one thought unfinished, so I'm going to finish that. And then your normal video will resume back with me from 20 minutes ago when I was talking up in my studio. Just to the point of like being able to talk to different people and get into that space with them. Sometimes, like I talked about the reposted meme and like thinking about like artists see the world differently. We're highly observational, and we have this intrinsic thing that propels us towards extracting meaning from things and translating it. It's kind of the artist's task, even if it's you know, whatever it is, visual arts, performing arts, musical arts, healing arts. And I think that our ability to talk with different kinds of people who have no apparent similarities to us or the way that we think, it can be hard for people who are radically different to understand each other. But really, it's less of an intrinsically possessed ability to understand people. It's more of a practice. It comes down to like holding space for the conversation in the way that it requires for that understanding to be born. Sometimes it's not easy, and sometimes it takes patience and a little bit more time, right, with people who we don't understand. But when my grandmother and my brother were like, we were just talking about you and how you have a good way about you of being able to talk to and relate to just like anybody. I think it comes less from something about me and more about the fact that I know how much I've been misunderstood in my life and how much that means to me. And so I have an earnest thing within me where I'm like, I will yearn to understand you in the way that it is that you're actually communicating to me. I will yearn to understand you in the way that it actually is that you want to be understood, even if maybe a person can't even explain themselves in the way that they want, like it's insufficient to them. I will still yearn to read between the lines, right, and kind of like help you be understood, because a lot of people don't try because the outcome, the chances don't seem that high of like connecting or being understood. Obviously the new energetic swell and the new energetic wave and the new energetic way of things is bringing in a lot more. It's a call to people who heed the call. Some people won't hear it at all. It's a call for us to focus on Sorry, I got distracted by a bumper sticker. It says, "Death smiles at everyone, only Marines smile back." That's weird. I have a lot to say about that. Let's not get distracted. Whew. I smile back. I want to knock on his window and be like, "Yo, are you a Marine?" He clearly is. Okay. I'm sorry. Whew. Yeah, there's an uptick in this desire between people to make more sense out of things, because it feels like me talking about core key differences in my black sheepness that drive wedges that they're uncomfortable to deal with and navigate between me and people, members of my family and stuff, right? Because they're genuinely questioning like my sanity, or if I'm a responsible adult, if I choose to do something in a way that differs from the norm or the way. We live in an era, you'll notice, I'm going to talk about this more, an era where we've appointed, the public polices each other, right? Everybody's like a moral police, and it's like, are you doing the right thing? Like, am I doing the right thing? I think I'm doing the right thing, so I'm going to tell the people that I am, so that they know that I'm aligned. And like, if you're not, then, and you're affiliated with me, then that makes me look bad. And like, we have to, that whole thing. It's like, we're coming to a point where it's very important to be able to understand other people, or at least try to. And a lot of people don't even want to understand other people. And that is something that I've never really understood personally, because I'm just, well, I mean, I get it, right? It has to do, immediate 180. Has to do with, sorry. I'll always focus on the road before the video. I don't want to open up the comment section and people be like, "You're an idiot, stop filming when you drive." I know. It has to do with people who don't really care or want to know or seek to understand another person. Like, they'd rather just be like, I mean, whatever, it doesn't matter. A lot of people have a hard time zooming out and getting outside of their own issues enough to like be like, maybe it does matter. Maybe I have the time and patience and energy and bandwidth and emotional patience to try to let it matter. Or this is a side note, but I never posted a video. I was talking about the nature of stuttering and stuff, how there's an energetic component to that. This is a whole other video that I'll do in the future, because it also has to do with almost like Tourette's in the body, and like tics and stuff, and how energy manifests, and how, again, we see things as a certain diagnosis, but there's actually a lot of different ways to explain the ways that our bodies show and translate symptomatic information. A lot of professionals are trained to see symptoms and suspect causes. But what if we always saw causes before symptoms? All right, this is just gonna turn, I'm about to be stuck in traffic for like 2 hours, so this is just gonna turn into a really long ramble, and I don't want to do that. Enjoy resuming with Mariah from the past of 30 minutes ago. It's 3:33 on the clock as I look up. And they were talking about that, and it made me think of something that I posted to my Instagram in 2017. It's a pink poster, and I like found it somewhere and reposted it, but it says, "Beware of artists. They mix with all classes of society and are therefore most dangerous." And that's very true. Okay, I have a little train of other thoughts coming through. I'm gonna put that down for now and start to move into a little bit of something else, but I just needed to air those thoughts out. I really want to, there's so much stuff, and there's so much potential to organize this information in a really good, clear way that makes sense to people. And when I don't take the time to do that, and I'm just like, blah, 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 then I feel like I don't really do it justice. So I'm going to put a pin in a few things, but I'm going to circle back to the whole sugar baby women profiting off of sexual energy, or needing money, so wanting to use sexual energy in order to profit. I was talking about it, and then I posted another video to kind of like explain it a little bit more, saying like I didn't want to bypass that. I do think it's like kind of a big deal. But on the other hand, super common. It's almost like cancer or STDs. If you don't have it, somebody you know does. It's like that with women who do, because it's not like you have to be a full-on prostitute or escort for that exchange dynamic. You could sell feet pics. I've done that. Why the fuck not? They don't look that good, but if you like them, fine, Or, so women selling themselves for money, we'll just say, blanket statement. I know it's more complicated than that, but tons of people do that. And I'm sure everybody knows this, but it's like, it's not the people that you'd think. You wouldn't know necessarily. And that's how I feel about some of the things that I'm concerned are going to start to be, not just for teenagers and young people, but like when the monkey's falling from the tree, when the tower towers and he reaches out to grab the branches and they're not strong, they're dead and they're going to break off and he's going to keep falling, but it's the best attempt to stay afloat or keep going. Certain things are not. I was incredibly good at hiding my dysfunction. Incredibly good at it. And a lot of people are. And I think a lot of people who are spiritual and are gifted, but they say, you're not a magical pony, take off that unicorn horn, it's a sign of mental illness. And then you get squashed. These people in particular are particularly good at hiding their dysfunction, because it's like I never believed that any of this was the case. I was just like, why is this happening to me on earth? Like, why is this so hard for me to just survive and be myself? I don't get it. It's like it's like the world is trying to tell me that my experiences don't exist and are not valid and are called something that they're not. And I'm stuck, I couldn't make sense of that. And so I had to keep a part of myself completely closed off to protect it and not tell anybody about it. Because if I had let it out there, then it would have been squashed, I think. So there's a shadow side to being really sneaky and hiding your dysfunction because you don't get help that you need. But on the other hand, I felt like I was protecting something that lived within me that I was like, this is all a waste of time. Like the wiser soul within me that communes with like Saint Simon and Saint Paul, the way, like if you picture me and my soul, pretend I was an old man with a cloak on with them, right? I was one of them with them instead of this girl. That voice is like, this is not the way. Like there's something within me that even back then, not being as in touch and in tune as I am now and understanding of this, that was like, come on. And so it led me to kind of like protect myself as a survival mechanism. And the little stuff that kind of stayed with me is like what allowed me to build myself back up. And I believe had I not had certain types of people such as Emily Pompey, my medical intuitive healer who I've done workshops with and who has helped me so much throughout the years. Like if I hadn't met her, if I hadn't, I'll talk about the therapist that I saw for 5 years, Stan the Man, you're the best. He was deeply, deeply versed in Jungian analysis and the subconscious and the dream space. And I took a lot of psychology at Carnegie Mellon, cross-cultural psychology, personal psychology, I already said cross-cultural, seminars and intervention and therapeutic methods. But just being a patient of my psychotherapist was one of the most educational experiences I've ever had. And I saw him every week for 5 years almost. I'll talk about him at another point in time, but I am concerned, and I think that anybody who listens and is also concerned for the well-being of other people, it's true that we're gonna see increases in death of all kinds. It could be the kind that somebody chooses on their own, or it could be people dying of health issues. They're gonna start, like, we're gonna see it, okay? What's interesting is that people are falling ill every day. Like the kids are not all right. You know what I mean? We don't really have a good, like, when do you ever think out and zoom out of America and look down and pretend that you can see like tacks on a map, everybody who has cancer, everybody who has this, everybody who has that? It'd be flaming hot lit up. You don't have to, everybody's ill, right? And then we look at other countries and how America is special in this way. The currency of 2024 and moving into like a new era, people are going to really, really start to value health and mental wellness over money. Currency, currents of energy. What good is any money if you die before you use it or can enjoy the leisure that you've worked so hard to retire for? Yeah, I'm going to cut the deck to get a card, one from each. I'm going to shuffle them first because they need to be reactivated. I haven't shuffled them yet. No, I'm going to shuffle, and then I'm going to get top and bottom. Okay. Excuse me. Top of the deck is the Ten of Pentacles. Bottom of the deck is the High Priestess. Yeah, the kids are not all right. Bottom of the deck is the Empress. I feel as if, all right. Here's another thing. When I talked about feeling intuitively that comment from somebody who did not reach out to me in any manner of way, right? It's just me and my own mind and my delusions, hearing someone else's reaction to something that might have happened however many hours ago. Them saying like, oh, you're really still trying to do this whole like spiritual stuff. Like, why don't you just not? Nobody cares. It's becoming increasingly easy to tell how, who, and in what ways there are unhealed collective and individual amongst the people that you frequent and know. It was 4444 88 16 7. I'm seeing, no, all right, wait, focus. Yay. I don't know if we could call it like telepathy and whatnot, but if you interact with somebody and you've been hermiting and kind of like feeling good in your own lane, and then you get around people and it's like people just don't even know how to talk without tearing somebody down or like bitching about something or like bitching about the weather, right? Airing negative, that kind of thing. Energetically, even if you're not a mind reader, you'll be able to feel it in your body if people are unhealed around you, I think. I mean, everybody's gifting is different, but the ability to feel that is going to increase. And so I guess there's this thing within ourselves around distress tolerance and understanding how subtle these things can be. And I talked about the word trigger months ago as the fact that like in the healing community, it's like, oh, I'm triggered, or, you know, what are your triggers? I think it's just a human thing. We're triggered all day, every day. It's just some of them are minuscule, and I'm triggered into wanting a snack because my tummy's growling, or I'm triggered into raising my voice because somebody struck a nerve, right? Triggers. I kind of want to redefine that word. And so the biggest advice here with High Priestess and Ten of Pentacles, what I talked about before with like, sometimes I'm like, do I even want to do this YouTube channel? Do I want it to grow? I feel like I'm getting an analogy about like ducks in the harbor or like nursery, like an initial stage of growth and wanting it to be like in its infancy. And I'm getting an analogy about brackish waters too, in an estuary where if you have a saltwater body of water that meets a freshwater river, and those two, like the saline content of the ocean intermingles with the freshwater, we call that brackish waters. I went to marine biology school. I'm kind of a nerd. Some fish will take their young, some species really, not just fish, into those spaces and use them as nurseries, like safe harbor. So I'm kind of in that stage with this channel. Oh, please don't let me lose this one. This one was good. High Priestess and Ten of Pentacles. So it'll come back if it's meant to. I'm seeing other things now. The energy is moving so fast, you guys. I think it's probably good to put this on camera so people can be like, you see that I'm being different. Because I think I don't know who I'm talking to or who's out there, but I have a pretty high level of spiritual gifting. It's a lot. It's a lot. I know that. It's unusual. It's a lot. So if people have less, but still some, the contrast for me on a day like today, I'm like, it's so much. But even if you're not like me, you can still be like, oh, I feel as well like there are certain things that are like peaking in this high priestessy way. I remember. Okay, so I was talking about currency as an evolving thing where money is actually quite pointless, right? It's having the things that money allots for a person and getting needs met. And what I'm sensing is that high priestess energy, right? Seeing, knowing, we also still have the hermit here, so I'm seeing this for a reason, right? He's holding up the lantern, it's going behind her head, and then she has this sun behind her, and it makes me think of what I said earlier with like solar plexus and coming back to the self right now and not becoming untethered or triggered in the ways that are very possible. But it's like there is ultimate stability no matter what in being able to redirect our idea of what makes abundance, what makes someone like truly rich or wealthy. I love seeing all these reels of like young women who have young babies and they're like, I want to feel rich. And then it's just like clips of her like feeding the baby oatmeal like in the lawn and like, I just saw a clip of my dog running past because, he'd be there. But in general, it's like if a single moment is crystal clear, golden, amazing, and all it requires is just being in sunlight and being peaceful, tending to yourself, that's clear golden abundance of like peace. And maybe there's no money involved, right? If the person is in good health and with loved ones, like this shift is coming in. And so high priestess energy is part of this stability because it's going to help us with reframing around the physical world. And I'm also getting something around, what's the word for it? Not propensity, prosperity, posterity, future generations. Like in this card, we see kind of like this gentleman philosopher with, is it a page? Is it a woman or a man? It's a page and it's a dog. So they're two men, 10 of Pentacles though. It's like generational, intergenerational. And he's just got the Farquaad, like friar haircut, I think it's a man. And, but 10 of Pentacles different from 10 of Cups being the relational inner family. 10 of Pentacles is about stability in a different way. And I'm getting a communal community thing too. And it ties back to what I was saying before, because we all have our own issues and stuff, but just I kind of feel like it's important to talk about the fact that somebody could be suffering so deeply and you will maybe have absolutely no idea. And we can help ourselves through this massive time of transformation by continuing to kind of like touch back on what's within our control and like how we feel in relation to our own like triggered shadows. Because people who have been doing a lot of shadow work and healing and stuff, it's a push, right? It's like things are about to get really good, but that might mean that there has to be this like extra purge that kind of helps us release what we need to release at this very apropos time in order to move forward. That's why it feels this way right now. All right, let's get into this really quickly. I'm actually going to end this video pretty soon because that's all. My guides are telling me that I'm going to go into a whole hour-long reading if I choose to pull cards right now. So I'm going to leave it at that. 2 from the bottom of this deck, and I'll shuffle out 2 to clarify. Oh, all right. Well, I didn't. Number 5, financial and material changes at the bottom of the deck, but I didn't really shuffle these. I used these this morning. So we saw this earlier, but I'm just going to go with it. Because, in guidance, they knew this card was on the bottom of the deck, and that's what we needed to see. Also, I saw 411 on the clock, and we've got 11 and 111, or 11 and 1, which makes 111. But this is, again, our temperance card. Balance, I love this embodiment of the Temperance card because he's one of our angels that's similar. He's giving Archangel Michael energy and almost magician with these items at his midsection area. Let me get my face out of it so it can focus. Pentacle, a wand, a cup, a sword. The things that he has at his disposal to maintain a stasis, balance. Balance is not being perfectly still. It's being able to let whatever happens not make you bend to its will, right? You're autonomous. If I'm feeling so angry, let's go with elementals right now, okay? Angry. What element do you associate with anger? Fire, me too. It's like rage, right? Okay. So if I'm feeling such an abundance of anger and I try to think about like, how do I fix this? What do I need? I would pull in, I imagine like a godly waterfall just like raining on my head, and I let it change the quality of my body, and I do an energetic scan and I'm like, I am peace. I command it to be so. I need to calm the F down. Counteractive, right? There's this ability within, and I've talked about this in terms of, well, I talked about it this morning, quickly roving between these different aspects of our being as our energy intensifies, being able to pivot in these times of chaos and maintain this balance, because we're cutting through to truth and clarity. Do you see how the sword itself is but an object in the foreground of this image, but it in fact has kind of this presence, or it's a coincidence, right? That the clouds in back of it, the light comes out from the side of the blade. Something, it cuts through, it reveals light. This is the kind of push that we are in as we, I don't even know what to call it. I was going to say slide into the new year, pull our tattered bodies in a pile of blood, tears, and glitter across the finish line. Like crawl, obstacle course like those people do where they're just like jumping onto things and they like fall off. There's a lot of different energies that, and then the show dog, the fancy little steps at the end. Something interesting and complicated here. Coming in to be dealt with for us as we level up at this time. But whatever weirdness that creates in your life, just know that the truth is coming through. It's cutting through all of these illusions. Sometimes the illusions get crazier because that means the truth gets more prominent, right? It demands to be pulled out of them. That's happening collectively as fuck right now. I didn't want to say as fuck, but they said go for it. I've already cursed enough to deter anybody from the channel who doesn't want to deal with that. I try to keep it pretty tame. Please clarify triumphant success and the balance card. Okay, don't take it. It wanted to flip. I didn't even see it. New beginning. Ace of Swords was our triumphant success. It's just from a different deck. So the clarity, the sharpness, the truth, it's unavoidable, right? It's here, it's now. It's able to be accessed, and anybody who's in this state of reactivity is somehow bypassing it, somehow trying to bypass it. Reactive, angry people are processing something. And here's the thing. I was thinking about this yesterday. Anger is not a bad thing at all. I'm not saying like you always need to be on guard so that you don't get angry. No. Please don't take me to mean anything like that at all. In fact, I know couples. I think I have a married friend. Well, they're two people and they're married to each other. And their process, no judgment, they kind of do just need to yell at one another. And then maybe they have sex and they're happy again, right? To resolve conflict. I could talk about that. Everybody's got their own complex dynamic and nothing's like perfect in the way it should be, right? We can always evolve to have healthier coping mechanisms instead of avoidant ones that don't truly solve the issue. I'm just saying that because a lot of people just kind of like have sex to solve arguments, and that's not productive by any means. I mean, of course it is, but also of course it's not. If you follow my drift, so, and by that I just mean like identifying actual core issues so that they don't repeat and manifest in the future argument. Sex is more so of like a distraction technique, and a lot of people do it in order to get out of arguments or not. Yeah. But if two people love each other and there's not like abuse or a lot of avoidance happening, then it's okay to process your emotions in their raw, authentic state and be sad or be angry. And I will say this, I did mildly raise my voice at somebody yesterday, and somebody who I love. It's not like a work thing or anything like that. It's a personal matter, but I was super activated because I didn't feel like I was being listened to. And it's hard for me to like stay calm and even keel and communicate if another person's getting worked up at me or around me too, right? Because we tend to kind of mirror that. And I've been kind of asked like, what are you going to do, or how are you doing, or what is this about? And like I was explaining something, and all of a sudden I was like, why am I needing to defend myself? Somebody asked me, it was triggering for me because it took me back into that place of people being like, how are you? Who are you? And then no matter what I say, no matter how I do anything, they're like, wrong. Take this. You're locked up, like wrong, you know? That has taken me a long time to not fear. And so I get activated if I just try to share my truth and say like, well, I'm working on this and this is how it's going and this is what I think. And they're like, I don't know about that. That's not, you should do that. A lot of people have a lot of stuff to say about what it is that I do. I don't know if people relate to this, if you kind of have like alternative practices or healing spaces and walk with a lot of people who don't really understand this or get it, you know, and have more traditional belief systems or have heard things and even fear this community. Like, oh no, she's just lost in a cult. Like, worrying is using your imagination to create something you don't want and energetically fuel it. And I always tell people, like, I know that people who love each other express their love and concern, but I would prefer that you just love me and believe in me and wish well for me. That will help me instead of, you know, projecting really, because I mean, I don't want to go into that, and I actually will be talking about that because there are some dynamics around that are going to be, what it's like is like the nuances, it's as if the nuances in being able to manage certain things are going to get really, really granular. Almost hard to detect, like, but there will be patterns. And this is particularly pertaining to how we talk to people, where it feels as if we can't quite get our point across. Like, I could say it a million ways, but maybe this person just isn't equipped to hear what it is I'm saying. A lot of the times, if we don't feel like we're being heard, we get frustrated. Like a child, right? Children will raise their volume if they don't think they're being heard because they want to get somebody's attention, but the parent could always hear, they're just busy. And so something that I've taken to doing, really, the reason why I like words and repurposing things and just trying to spew out information in as many different possible versions and varieties and analogies as possible, is because that's worked for me in the past. If I say something and somebody like doesn't get it, or, you know, they say they do, but the conversation progresses and it's like, you can tell that they didn't really like get what it is that you're saying. It's like I offer them a little present, little gift. And they rip off all the paper and they're like, no, and they give it back to me. They don't get it, right? Cognitive dissonance. What I said didn't get through. Return to sender. I'm like, okay, I got it back. I'm going to wrap it up differently. I get a different kind of paper, different words, different analogy, different tone even. Maybe I came on a little too strong. I'm going to soften. I'm going to try to feel into how I want my messaging to be received, how I want this person to feel as a result of what I'm trying to communicate, because it's important. I'm trying to bridge something here. I think about how I want them to feel, and then I try to come from that angle, because you get the energy that you give. And then I repackage it and I give it back. And they tear off the paper and they say, nah, doesn't resonate. I don't get it. Sometimes people don't know that they do this, right? This is why I say there's a heightened level of nuance to some of the issues. Like, we're like, what? And then all we can do is be frustrated. I'm not saying the frustration isn't valid, but I'm saying there's another way to kind of keep moving through these spaces where we're being the bigger person. We're energetically setting a tone that's more productive, and it keeps the dynamic moving. So they don't get it again, right? Cognitive dissonance. They think we're having a conversation and everything's fine. And I'm like, you still have no idea what I'm saying. I'm not getting through to you and I know it, even if you think that we're great, you know? And I want to help or move something along. They give it back to me. I repackage it. I finally give it to them and they rip off the paper. And I've taken note of how I have not been received, and I've augmented the approach so many times. It makes me want to cry because I get a visual of myself. It's inner child again. So it's a younger version of me, like 8 years old. And I'm sitting there and I've got wrapping paper everywhere and I'm just like crying and I'm a mess because I've tried so many times to repackage my truth, right? And offer it out. It gives me full body goosebumps too. That's really big. I think a lot of people feel like that, and that's why, but maybe they don't try as hard. I've never given up. Some people just give up, right? And it's like, But then we kind of resent the person and they're like, well, they're not willing. They're not flexible. They don't, and that's where it turns into projection. But not all the time, right? It's so complicated. Things can be both and. That person could be rigid and inflexible, but it doesn't mean they're not worth our time, right? It doesn't mean that they're not worthy. It doesn't mean they're not the person that we need to talk to in order to figure this out. Just like the person who's in prison or the child who's in some like horrible wilderness juvie camp being literally abused and forgotten about, they're not any less worth our time or our help. So that's a tip, really. That's a tip for navigating this time of new beginnings, around being able to just see this thing as a process. If I have no dog in the race and I'm like, well, I mean, I really genuinely do want this person to understand me, but if they're not going to, I got to be able to accept that and walk away without getting mad. I know that I'm a kind of a unique individual and I hold other people to a very high standard because I can execute it for myself. And I'm like, let's all do it together. And then when people aren't capable of that because they don't hold themselves to that standard, because they don't see the world that way, that information isn't even available to them, I got to be able to be accepting of that. If I wasn't, I'd be a very, pretentious, condescending type of person who wasn't very fun or easy to work with in any capacity. And a lot of people are like that. And I used to be really like that too. I think not so bad, but definitely a little bit. And it's the temperance card and the balance card, because it's like there's always going to be something in the arsenal, toolkit, quiver of bows. You pull one out, you try again. Another way to come at something that not only is going to help you in your interactions with others and your managing of the physical world and your daily tasks and your desire to press forward in this pentacle-based reality and generate, what it is that you need, what it is that you want. Sometimes I talk a lot from like survival perspective because I know that it's a hard time and people are struggling, but also if you're not thinking just about, for the sake of it, what you're trying to manifest and bring in, you can do both at the same time. I recommend it. And by that, I mean, even if you're struggling, still try to stay positive and manifest things and stuff. It's going to help us right now to just think about the fact that the energy is getting, but when we unplug and we realize there's a different pace that honors, doesn't shut out and shut down the feeling of this collective intensity, but it's a different place to reside where it's like you're safe, sheltered from the storm type thing. And it has to do with your own conscious connection to what's happening in these moments when we get triggered, and we can immediately be like, antidote element, air energy. I'm feeling like, who knows? Air energy can be good to think about and harness around spaciousness, or because it is indicative of communication, or like the mental quality and being able to communicate about what it is we're thinking. You could kind of infuse, I don't even know, a visualization to try to help you communicate to somebody in a hard conversation or a conversation that isn't flowing very well. You can imagine like a gust of wind coming from behind their head and like moving towards you, almost like the element of wind or air energy is helping the contents of their thoughts move through their throat chakra and come out of their mouth so that the both of you can understand each other better with as little miscommunication and misunderstanding as possible. That's one way that you could use that visualization. And I know that sometimes when I talk about these things, people are like, I mean, I could, but why would I do that? Like, I'm not going to remember to do that. That's not going to do anything. Yes, it will. Take it or leave it. And also not right away. Not right away. These things take time to develop, like little muscles, these energetic tools. That's it for today. That's it for today. I feel so much better. I got to keep on going on with my workday, but I'm glad. I kind of think that's cool that I came up here 2 times in one day and was able to process this energy, because I was like, okay, well, this is super hypocritical, because I was just saying like, it's important for me to be able to ground and not come up and do it. And here I am doing it. Feels like I'm indulging and I should be more disciplined and not need to speak about it. But I was changing, and my guides were like, this is not one of those things. You can go process this. Like, you know, whose rules are we following? Just do what you need to do, be that eating intuitively, taking little naps, resting, taking space from people, reaching out to people if you're particularly isolated and lonely, reaffirming, resetting boundaries, even if you're like, I already told you that. Why are you disrespecting me? You might have to say it again. People are just people. Assume the best in people. All right, sending love to everybody.